Hello. I'll do a video today about Mike and how I got to know him and friendship that we had and everything. But before I do the last video, I talked about again, I don't make myself as clear as I should. I talked about the litter of Jake and Tango and their sisters, Martha, Hillary, Jackie, Roslyn. Might have been one more. And I said that was a pretty good litter, and I meant it. Jake was a good producer. He kept dogs off Jake. Tango was a good pit dog, and a little better than Jake. Just Jake produced better. And I said the sisters, it's a pretty good litter because they produced. And what I meant to say, and I didn't finish the sentences, they produced him puppies. He bred Champion Gambler to all those sisters and would sell pups. So I just meant it's a pretty good litter because you got your money back. You can get your money back, but you got some money to go back into the feed and stuff. They were not good producers, I would imagine, because when he said that was his not his best females in history, obviously they're not good producers. Maybe they threw a good one here or there. I didn't get in detail with him about it. Maybe they had some with a little bit of talent here or there, but it's pretty much as a producer, a dog that produces is a gold mine. Like to me, I never matched a dog. I was a breeder. So a badass dog in a pit that couldn't produce, I mean, it was worthless as a laying hen without an asshole to me. If you was a dog fighter back in those days and you had a badass dog, you might make some money with him. But as a breeder, if they couldn't produce, just didn't mean anything to me. So I just wanted to clarify that they were not producers. As a matter of fact, to my knowledge, I'm about 99.9% sure he didn't keep anything off of Hillary and Roslyn and Jackie and Martha and Eleanor, Hillary, some of those dogs right there, he didn't keep anything off of. But he did keep dogs off of Jake. So anyway, how I met Mike, I don't recall the year. I would guess 93, 94. And back then, when you had a phone, calling out of your county was long distance, and talking like 20 minutes would really make your phone bill go up. And if you called out of state, I mean, forget about it. You're talking a lot of money. So I was like, man, do I want to call him or not? I want one of these dogs. And back then, there was no internet or anything. So I would either seen his ads in the Pitbull Gazette, or back then magazines was huge. You could walk into any store and there was a magazine rack, just huge, of sports, dogs, hunting, you name it. Women's magazines, things like cooking and fashion and people and us and all that kind of stuff. But in some of those dog magazines, they was mainly show breeders for other breeds of dogs advertised. But you did get a few American Pit Bull Terrier breeders like Mike. I think Gary Hammond's advertised in there. I think there was a couple more and I can't remember. So that's how I got Mike's number. And they'd also have their address, which was always a P.O. box. Back then you didn't want people to know your address, and there was no internet. There was no way to find it because, this business drew some shady characters, and rather than buy a dog and raise it up and see if it was any good, they just go steal them. So that's why everybody had P.O. boxes. And when I went to call him, in all of Mike's ads, he had advertised DM Norrod. Well, I'd seen some pictures of his brother Danny, a champion bobcat or one of them. And so I called him one day. I was really excited, and I called him up and I said, yeah, can I speak to Dan Norrod? And he said, you got the wrong number. I said, well, this is a number I got. It said Pit Bull Terrier breeder. He said, Danny hasn't bred dogs in years. My name's Mike. I got good dogs, and if you want one of them, you're going to have to stand in line. And I was like, Jesus Christ, what it was. I didn't know his name was Dennis Michael, but he went by Mike. With a DM, I just assumed was for Dan. So we got off on the wrong foot, and I'll be honest with you, I thought, God, what an asshole, So we didn't speak very long, and I tried to research some other breeders, which was hard to do in those days because, in the 80s to the early 90s, there just wasn't ways to get a hold of people other than the magazines. So I was reading Stratton books and stuff at that time. I was just fascinated with the red devil dogs, or the red-nosed dogs. If I could get some Lightner or Red Devil or Corvino, which I don't believe Joe Corvino. I don't believe all his dogs were red-nosed. Hempful, whatever I could get of that red nose, I was just fascinated with it. So I can't remember how long it was, and I called him again and ended up buying the dog off of him. And back then they would fly it, so you'd have to go to an airport. There's a big pain in the ass. They had to call you when they took it to the airport. You don't know when it was going to get to the airport in your state. And it was just a hassle. But anyway, I got a bitch off of him. And slowly started calling him and talking to him. And I don't even think it was in the first year. I think it took probably like 5 years or so that we finally started talking steady. Excuse me. And started developing a friendship. And we would talk sometimes. I had a cordless phone at one time. We would talk so long that would go dead, and I'd have to grab one of them plug-in phones and call him back. I would not say 2 words and just listen. I just listened. I listened to everything I could. I wrote down everything I could. I just wanted to learn. I had such a passion for these dogs at like 9 or 10. And I had owned dogs before Mike and getting from the Ironline dogs, a Red Devil Corvino. Norrod Red Devil is what I called them, but they was like, some guy had them around town. You'd buy one for like $10 in the 80s, and they was all, you knew none of them was from game bred stock, which was rare in those days, because in those days, 70s and maybe the 80s, it was getting out of it. You didn't own those dogs unless you fought them. So all these dogs would get along, man. You know, they was all through town. Not a lot, but the people I knew that had them, man, you go somewhere and both of you take your dogs, and they wasn't going to fight or nothing. They got along fine. So I really started wanting to get into game lines and how much courage these dogs have, and how bad they was, and how little they was. It was like a little giant, man. And I know sometimes after we got to know each other, I think Mike got tired of talking dogs all the time, and I was a musician, and he knew that, so he wanted to talk music because he played bass and guitar. I toured all the time, played music. I got tired of talking about music. I wanted to talk about dogs, so sometimes we would kind of struggle with each other, go back and forth. He wanted to talk about music. I want to talk about dogs. Never got sick of talking about dogs, and I just listened. And the only time I would talk was to ask a question. And I tell you, I'm grateful because he really taught me a lot. And like I said, that first phone call, Mike was rough around the edges, man. There's no doubt about it. He's one of those guys where if you didn't know him well, I guarantee most people thought he was an asshole. When you got to know him, he was still rough around the edges, but you want to talk about a nice guy and a big heart. He was a good guy, man. I like Mike. Grateful for everything he taught me. Grateful for the dogs I got from him. The knowledge. I mean, I just, to me, it was a gift to get to know somebody. I've never got to pick another breeder's brain. Not somebody that famous. Other than, I had talked on the phone to Colby in Texas. It was pretty nice and open about talking dogs. But one thing I wish I would have asked him that I never did, my only regret, I didn't ask him his influences. I know he had told me that his dad and uncles were into dogs, or his dad and grandfather were into dogs. But he didn't talk about them a lot, or this dog or that dog I got from them. I didn't hear none of that. He did talk a little bit about Frank Creed, not much. But I remember when I bought the second dog from him, I had been talking to him on the phone, kind of getting to know him a little bit. So he said, well, meet me at I said, can I drive up and get the dog? I don't like that airport deal. It was probably about I don't know, it was a long time ago, probably about 2.5, 3 hour drive. And he said, yeah, you can meet me at this exit. So I pulled in this exit. There's like an abandoned store or something there. And Lynn pulled in, his wife. I could see a crate, pup in the back. She said, follow me. So I was like, I wonder what the heck, why they want me to follow them. They just won't give me the dog. So she took me to the first house he started in. He said it was either an aunt or a grandmother that financed the dogs when he got into dogs and helped him out with the money to buy them. And a nice little house, nice little neighborhood, not a very big yard. And his dad and his stepmom was there. He was over doing some work on that house. He had still owned it, but he didn't rent it out or anything. So I got to meet him in person for the first time, meet his dad, stepmom. And after that, it just evolved into a friendship where we'd have a club meeting. I'd go over to his house and hang out afterwards. I mean, I wasn't over there a lot. We was in different states, so I took my kids over there before, and he took us all out to dinner. But when I went to his house after, meeting his dad and the house that he got started in the dogs, I was shocked his house on I Drive was in a neighborhood. I couldn't believe it, because every time I was in his yard, he had 25 or 30 dogs. Every time I had the dogs, I was out in the country, and most dog men are out in the country. You can't have a bunch of barking dogs in the city, and that just blew me away. I mean, he had neighbors beside him. It wasn't in the country, he was in town. He had neighbors beside him, neighbors across the street, and I did have a big yard. He had it all, privacy fenced in. He had he'd bought trees, and I didn't know you could buy grown trees. He bought trees and had put in and stuff, his cover and stuff. So that's how I really got to know him and talk to him a lot. And like I said, he was a good guy, and I know at the end of me knowing, at the end of me having the Red Devil dogs, I'm not going to pick a year because I'll get it wrong. Somewhere around 2008, 2010, maybe, when I still had the Red Devil dogs, he told me that if he was younger and still into dogs or matching dogs, he would go with the Champion blood. He was that impressed with them, and that was Champion Gambler, Champion Duchess, Champion Haggler, which was the Grand Champion Blackjack with the Red Devil stuff, and the Champion Red Dog, the Turtle Buster stuff. And I thought that was impressive for him to say that. He must have really, that must have been a big accomplishment with all those blood together, because I think he only got to test like the first generation of that line, of the Champion blood, because they was, hassling him so much and everything. I know there was other farmouts like me that were getting dogs off of him and testing him, so he knew what they was doing. But him personally, I don't think after Missouri Jim and Erie and Duchess and Duchess 2 and Bobcat 2 and Dexter, I don't think the next generation, I know they wasn't tested. He just couldn't. Junkie Jane, and I'm not going to be able to remember that second generation of dogs off the top of my head, but so that was really impressive for the newcomers that I hope's watching to learn. So that's how important that Champion blood is if you get it. And the thing about having that kind of blood, even though you don't match dogs or roll dogs, to me that's still the best kind of pet to have. I think they have a stable disposition, because if you think about it, if you got a dog in there that'll whip anything, and you got to stand in a box beside it and another guy's, how trusting is that? That's a very stable dog. So if I ever would get back into the dogs, I'd still want the game bred lines, because to me it's just much more a stable dog. One more thing that I'm thinking of that just hit me is I don't know if Mike was born in Michigan and then went to Texas and came back, or if he's born in Texas and then moved to Michigan. But all I do remember him saying is he went to high school in Texas and he played tight end, and people said, man, you play tight end, hard nose like Iron Mike Norrod. So his kennel was called Ironline Kennels. So that's kind of half the reason they called him Iron Mike. I never called him that. I just called him Mike. But a lot of people called him Iron Mike. And then he was a union iron worker. So, hence the name Ironline Kennels, which I thought was a pretty cool name. So that's just a little bit on Mike and how I got to know him. Good guy, sold his dogs very reasonable. For the longest time, he sold pup for $600. Get to know him, just, you couldn't buy dinner. I tried to buy dinner up there in Michigan. He'd say, not in my state, Mark. And yeah, some of it, he got a tax write-off for talking about dogs, and some of it, he's just a good guy, man. He always paid for dinner, bought me and my kids dinner one time at Red Lobster, one of them places. Wouldn't take any money, wouldn't let me leave the tip. And just a good guy, man. So had good dogs too. I actually didn't know the photo that's on here of him and Bentley Suzuki, two-time winner. I didn't know until here in the last month that's where the white head came from, because in my day I'd seen when you got a kennel video from Mike, he sent the pedigrees of the dogs that he was breeding and you could buy pups from. He sent the pedigree of Ross's Red Devil. He sent the pedigree of Weiss's Maximilian. He sent the pedigree of Bentley Suzuki, and he sent the pedigree of I think the other foundation dog was Weiss's Maggie. And like I said, I didn't have internet the first 25, 30 years of me being in a dog. I didn't know what them dogs looked like. So I thought the white head came from Spike. Iron Spike didn't have a white head, but he had a lot of white in his face. So it's pretty interesting to find a picture for this video that's Suzuki, which I never seen, and see where the white head came from. And a lot of the dogs he had was white heads. A lot of dogs I had the white head. I actually got a little dog one time that was pure white. Lynn said they have never got a pure white dog, and damn, he must have been 27, littlest bulldog I ever had. I wish I'd have weighed him, but he was probably 25, 27 pounds. If you didn't know dogs and you seen him, you'd think he was a pup, because he was just small as could be, and that's how I liked him. So anyway, that's a little bit about Mike, and of course he's passed on now, and hope everybody has a good day.